Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, I'll be talking about a change in rating philosophy going forward into Dragonflight. There was an interview conducted. It was either by Tolly or Mr. GM. I believe it was Tolly's question. Sorry if I'm wrong. To Ian Hazakostas about rating and stuff like that, and what happened with Liquid and Echo and Sepulcher, the first ones. And his response, I thought, was very telling. His response was that, they felt like they were like in an arms race with them, and they tried to make the raid, last a certain amount of time based on them, and things got out of hand. Essentially, it's like Doctor Strange. Things just got a little out of hand, and it ended up being way too difficult. And we've seen like unprecedented amounts of nerfs to the raid because there's no gear nerfs for it or whatever. There's no built-in system to nerf the raid, like Shards of Domination or whatever. You just do the raid. And so there's no nerfs. So there's no passive nerfs, so they had to do physical nerfs to the bosses at unprecedented levels. And they don't want to have to do that again. And they said they give up, and they're not going to do that anymore. And I think this is a very good thing overall. I will talk about a potential thing to worry about, but I do think overall it's a really good thing. Why is that? So, a lot of casual players have been saying for a long time, casual PvE players, whatever, have been saying for a long time how raids are just not that accessible. Normal raid, yeah, you can do normal raid if you put a little bit of time into it, of course. I'm talking from a casual perspective, right? If you put like a little bit of time into it, willing to do a few wipes, you can on each boss, and then probably like a good amount of wipes on the later bosses. You can get through it and you can do it. Heroic becomes a lot more challenging. Heroic requires you, in some cases, to even kind of use add-ons, depending on the boss. I would say, maybe you could get away without using add-ons on most heroic bosses, even like end bosses. But, they sure make it a lot easier. It gets to that point where, the back half of heroic is kind of like the front half of mythic. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. And then in mythic, especially with Sepulcher, what you have is all kinds of one-shot mechanics that not only one-shot you, but one-shot your entire raid, and multiples of these on multiple bosses. And it's just, it becomes a bit much. And that's specifically what Ian pointed out, was having all these one-shot mechanics, and that's what they had to nerf really badly, or near one-shot mechanics or whatever. And that's what they had to nerf really, really significantly, on top of, boss health and stuff like that. Boss health is more of, even lower end, cutting edge guilds, for example, can still put up good parses. They can press their buttons usually correctly. So it's not that they can't do DPS, but it's like not having the right classes and the right combinations of classes, the right buffs for your raid. That becomes a bit of an issue. And so you have to somehow make up that 5% damage somewhere, and you just don't physically have it in your comp. And so they nerf the boss health by 5%, and then you magically have it. And so you have nerfs like that as well. Those nerfs are also good for casual people who start out in Mythic, though, because they might still be learning how to press their buttons correctly. So I think that's good to have a little bit lower base health in general as well. By no means am I somebody who wants the raid to be easy. I am a Mythic raider. I like it to be hard. If it wasn't at least somewhat hard, I wouldn't probably have as much fun doing it. I want to feel a little bit of reward for accomplishing it. So, I think a normal range of pulls for like a Mythic boss should be maybe like 30 to 50 if your group's really good. And I'm talking like earlier bosses, right? And then when you get to the end boss, I think it's actually perfectly fine to still have end bosses take 200, 400, whatever pulls. I think that's actually fine for the end boss, as long as you're not getting completely hard stuck before you get there. I think they like to have these mid-wall bosses, and I think those are fine. But you have to be careful to where those wall bosses are not also like 400 pull bosses, because that becomes really, really rough for any casual guild, because it's like you have to clear because then you pretty much have to extend from that point forward, because it's just such a hard boss that it's going to take you multiple pulls to kill it the second time too. Like not multiple, but like lots of pulls to kill it the second time too. And so I think this is if they follow through with this, I think this is a good change in philosophy. I hope to see, Mythic guilds, if you know how to press all your buttons right, if you're doing everything correctly, you understand mechanics, you're doing everything mechanically correctly, I don't see any reason why, you shouldn't be able to, get through the beginning part of the raid pretty quickly, to a point where, and it's not that it should just fall over dead. You should still have to do the mechanics and stuff, but you should be able to get through it very quickly. And then also that means you get to re-clear it really quickly, as well as you get a little bit more gear too. You get to re-clear it quickly, and you can not have to extend so early as a casual guild, which can be really, really, really tough. Not only, on getting it done, but it's tough on roster, it's tough on mental health and stuff like that, like actually wanting to log in and play the game. So yeah, those are all the problems that we could alleviate by, not really worrying so much about if it's hard enough for the RWF. Now I'll shift in. So those are tons of positives. Theoretically, heroic will be slightly easier. The end part of heroic won't necessarily feel like, maybe like the last boss of heroic feels like a mid or early mythic boss. And hopefully, normal is something that any player can just go in and do. LFR just has a stigma to it, man. Like, there's people who want to raid, but they don't want to do LFR. It's like, yeah, you can come to the party, but you have to sit at the kids' table, right? And people just don't want to do that. People have pride. It's just reality. And some people don't want to do LFR, but they will do normal. And they all understand that it's easier, but they will do normal. And then they'll be like, man, maybe I could do heroic, right? And, I think that's a good place to be in. So, hopefully we see that all happen. But I will get into what could potentially be bad about making it easier. And it's not a huge deal. It's something to think about, but I wouldn't not change it, right? I wouldn't not make it simpler or easier. And that is the race to world first could be potentially really, really lessened in this by doing this. So you might see it on average be like 3 days or something, or 4 days. It won't be this big long event. And if they undertune a boss, it might just die the first day. Now, this is stuff that has kind of happened before. So it wouldn't be like the first time that a tier is like super easy. But, that could just become like the normal thing, that it's pretty easy. And that's allowing, people on normal schedules that can't play 16 hours a day or 12 hours a day or whatever, allowing people on normal schedules to still clear the raid. Not just clear the raid, but not clear the raid with like a week to spare. And, literally stressing yourself out for way too long and trying to keep a roster together for way too long. So, that could be an issue, though, as far as race to world first popularity. Now, why does that matter? It doesn't matter a ton, but it is a very popular event. People tune in for it. People care about it. It's cool to see World of Warcraft during the race to world first be in the top, top few. Maybe even occasionally the top thing on Twitch. For a few days or a couple weeks or whatever, it's meandering up at the top, and that's really cool. And we saw this with the Dragonflight Alpha as well, which is cool. Just for the Alpha coming out, it was like top 4, top 5, and it's a really old game, and it's not really necessarily cool for kids. But what happens is when it is like that, people know about it, right? So my nephews are in high school. I have 2 male nephews. So males are more likely to know about a video game than a female. Just the way it is, for better or for worse. But both my nephews know what World of Warcraft is. They've never played it. They might not ever want to play it, but they know what it is because, it's still relevant. I think it's important for a while to stay relevant because it's just been relevant for so long. I think you want to just increase that as much as you can, extend that as much as you can. So if high schoolers now still are, high school gamers, I should say, still know what World of Warcraft is, that's a good thing. Maybe they'll try it out when they're in college, or maybe they'll try it out when they're in their 20s and buy their first gaming PC or whatever. Maybe they'll give WoW a shot, and that's a good thing. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And if the race to world first, it does kind of go, down, perhaps maybe think of a different thing or a different thing you could do to kind of keep some of that little bit of hype going. And some people have suggested having a raid with like only 2 bosses, but they're both like super hard bosses. So it would be like unnerfed Halandris and then like unnerfed Jailer as the 2 bosses in there, or like unnerfed Painsmith and then unnerfed Sylvanas. Those are actually easy compared to the Halandris Jailer unnerfed versions. But you have these 2 unnerfed versions in, and you just let really top end people pound their head against a wall to defeat them, right? And Obviously, you don't want it to necessarily last 3 weeks or a month, but maybe you do. Maybe those people are just like, oh, this is going to last a month, and so we're going to prepare for it. We're not going to kill ourselves mentally. We're going to know it's going to last a month, whatever. I think that's an option, right? And then have those rewards only be cosmetic, so that way, like a normal CE guild doesn't feel pressured to go into it necessarily and do it. And it's just like, okay, this is just something that like the 1% get. Oh well, you know, it's something, and then, or maybe even then, maybe you have like a recolor, or maybe you just make a separate one. So like, let's say one of the rewards is a mount, right? That's a normal thing. Let's say the people who actually kill this raid with no nerfs to it at all, so like in the first month or whatever, they all get like this really cool mount. And then the people who, if they then nerf it and let other people give it a try, if they do that, I'm not saying they should, but if they do that, make it actually a separate mount. Let those people keep their really cool mount, like gladiator mounts or whatever, right? Let them keep those, but then maybe just have like a different mount that's not as cool, not as flashy, not a recolor. I would say keep that mount distinct that the top end people get, but like have it be just a lesser version of it or something, right? Like, so less bells and whistles on it, you know, not as sweet looking and stuff like that. That's just a thought on what you could do if you wanted to kind of keep this high end part of WoW going, the super high end part. But yeah, overall, I think what you have to do is you need to get more people being able to, you know, actually deal with the content that you're putting in the game. I think Asmongold always says this, that a big part of each patch in World of Warcraft is the raid. And by making it so difficult, you're just not allowing a large portion of your player base to engage with the raid. Again, because they're not going to want to do LFR. Maybe they would do normal. But I think the more people you can at least get into heroic, and people feel comfortable doing heroic because it's not too hard and too time consuming, I think that's better. I think Mythic will always be a little bit on its own. Making it easier will increase the number of guilds who give it a shot. There's a lot of guilds that people don't understand. They're like they've killed like 3 bosses in Mythic for this tier, right? And they're probably proud of that. They probably progressed from heroic and killed 3 bosses in Mythic, and that's really cool. And it truly is really cool. And, you know, so you're allowing a guild like that to maybe progress further into Mythic, maybe even get a cutting edge one day or whatever. And I think that's a good thing too. So I'm very for this. Obviously, you know, some people will be, don't make the game easier, but at some point you do have to worry about what is healthy for the game. I'm all for challenges. I'm all for things being hard. I'm all for doing really hard mechanics and doing them perfectly, even though it is mentally rough doing that for many pulls in a row. I'm all for it in general, but I'm not for it in terms of, well, eventually we're just going to have 10,000 people playing the game because it's too hard for everybody else. I think that's stupid. So if we have to make it easier, then make it easier. It's not like it has to be easy mode. You know, the average person is not going to walk into a Mythic raid and clear it still. You're still going to have to be looking up guides. You're still going to have to know how to press your buttons. So you have to know how to live on your spec or class in really tough situations. It's never going to be that you just walk in and kill it on Mythic. But I think, so let's say 2,000, I don't know how many guilds normally get cutting edge. Let's say it's like 2,000 normally or something like that. If that increases to 3,000 or 4,000, I just think that's a great thing, honestly. I don't think it should increase to, if it was 2,000, I don't think it should increase like times 5. But if you double the amount of people that are getting to participate in it, I think that's really, really good. So I'm all for it. I'm here for it. It's more positive news, in my opinion, coming out of Dragonflight. So far, it's been mostly positive. So we'll see if we keep along that track as we get closer and closer. Hopefully, I'll get into at least the beta when they do beta invites. And yeah, I'm super excited for it, guys. That's it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out so much. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.